This video is about the sapiosexual movement and how it is laughable, racist, and favors apathetic, evil, and indifferent people. Also how it relates to eugenics and the Egyptian foundation of philosophy and religion. And how it is bad for all people, especially women, minorities, poor people, and patients. So let's start off by defining intellect versus intelligence, and we'll move on to the different ways that this is bad for women and so on. Intelligence comes from inter plus legere, to gather. Now think about how this relates to mental acuity, wit, and intellect, and cleverness. Intellect, intellectus, intellegere, to understand. The power of knowing as distinguished from the power to feel and to will. So intellect is void of spirituality and profound spiritual truths and senses, but rather just knowing something for whatever reason. That's how it's defined. The capacity of knowledge. The capacity for rational or intelligent thought. This is where they blur the line a bit. These are the definitions. So it is intelligence plus mental capacity makes one intelligent. And one of the definitions is the ability to be quick-witted, mentally keen, or adept. Okay. Intelligence stresses success in coping with new situations and solving problems. And of course, how it relates to quick-wittedness and harmony and the higher forms of spiritual intelligence is displayed through sparring. We'll get into that in a moment. Clever, the native ability or optness. So a lot of people we see as intelligent are actually clever, and they have been brought into the know. So they're perceived as intelligent and intellectual. So they're basically clever and intellectual as a result of leveraging their privileges and advantages over the rest of us. So quick-witted implies promptness in finding answers in debate or in devising expedients in moments of danger or challenge, such as fighting to the death, life or death. Spiritual intelligence as it relates to life or death, God having the power of life or death more than anyone, and the people who play God and try to have the power of life or death using cleverness, cunning, and intellect. Rewind this if you miss what I'm getting at. This is key in understanding the rest of the video. So this video is also about corporate partners versus making sense. So the difference between a wise man and somebody who's just clever, cunning, with intellect has to do with higher degrees of logic and sense, which has to do with sensibility, sensibility. Your ability to sense, which has to do with mind, body, and soul, and mental acuity and thinking fast, putting things together quickly. Okay? And if you can't do it for the life of you, then obviously you have an inferior form of intelligence. Think about that. So I will touch on the sword as the spiritual power manifesting itself through the body. The examples in the Bible, in Egyptian mythology, Horus versus Set, Moses splitting the Red Sea, right? The spiritual power expressing itself through the body, and a profound spiritual event, which is what martial arts displays through sparring and not presentation. Okay? So the ability to analyze things also relates to the line and the bridge between intellect and intelligence. Okay, true intelligence, spiritual intelligence. So think about the apprentice and the master. So the myth of Wonder Woman and the genius programmer. Certainly there is some truth in him being a genius, right? He's not necessarily wise, he's intellectual. And Wonder Woman, there's truth, but where is it? It goes back to Revelations. It goes back to Genesis 41, Genesis 41, 45. Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zaphenath Paneah and gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, to be his wife. So the daughter of the martial arts priest of On, or Heliopolis, was given to Joseph to be his wife. So she is kind of like a Wonder Woman carrying the genes of martial arts warriors in her as she's married to Joseph. But she maintained the continuity through Ra, who were the people who argue with Aten and argue with Amun-Ra over where Ra is to be placed first and foremost, which is manifests itself when the Jews leave. And Joseph is the one who brought everyone, including Judah and the Levites, okay, to Egypt, where then eventually the followers of Set, Ramses, become to power, and the Jews leave saying, you have no God above me, not the golden bowl, not Set, no one. This is the cat of Heliopolis, the lion of Judah, the spirit as the air, the breathing, spiritus, okay? The lion as the air column of Shu, Ra as the true God, okay? No God before them. Joseph brings his brothers from Egypt, okay? This has to be understood. This is key. And of course, this goes back to the Ebos with the self-ordering universe. While the Chi was conceived of as while the Creator was conceived of as the great Chi, or the ultimate self-ordering, the course and character of the universe, the personal Chi was a spark from his great Chi. This Chi acted in some ways as the Creator's agent. Okay, so the Creator is the ultimate ordering the ultimate self-ordering, the course and character of the universe. He's the great Chi, this great spiritual power that the martial artist is drawing on, the light temple spirit warrior. And if we have time, we'll talk about how all martial artists failed, and by default on the top because of their philosophy, their lack of awareness, and so on. Okay, so when we think about how corporations recruit the modern woman, the professional woman, the culture, the routine, and how it goes back to the ancient world, the trade routes, the desert being the center of the trade routes, Babylon, the center of the trade, the main cult center of the trade routes, and the traitors, who are more concerned with the trade routes than the Spirit of God, versus Egypt, which is by these kind of African martial artists in Israel and these more spiritual people. Okay, and of course that culminated in the Buddha coming in and bringing in the yin-yang, meeting halfway with the kind of Babylonian worldly philosophies that existed already in Asia and Eurasia. Okay, so the Buddha, Hindus, they bring in the yin-yang philosophy halfway, lukewarm, and you cannot balance evil with lukewarmness. You have to balance it with pure light. There is no balancing the force with the yin-yang. It has to be the pure light temple. All right. So the woman takes on her professional culture, the routine, okay? She gets into the routine. She's influenced by women from various political and privileged groups that teach her how to go to the gym and take care of herself, stress and nutrition, and so on, to make her look beautiful, dress sexy, and have nice curves and gym-like body, Okay, and they extract these things from society. All the corporations, the corporate partners, they kind of help each other to extract the women and the food and the nice things from society effectively, to then hold each other up, and give each other good deals on things, and to put themselves way above everyone who's trying to compete. Therefore, 9 out of 10 small businesses fail. Okay, so think about the military and police women. It is pretty much their job and a requirement to maintain their position, to uphold the social norms of society, and to use their pussy power as such, and think about how they're shaped and so on. Sororities, and how they turn a blind eye to the drugging, the men, Mickey's, the Roofies, Minnie Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Disney. Think about gangster females, how they follow orders and how they behave. Hollywood females and porn stars, who are women who wanted to be Hollywood actors, who society, in their cults, kind of sluts, cult centers, turn them out into porn stars and strippers and so on. Think about the feminist movement and how they talk about pussy power and how they're the more conformist sex. So what is going on is basically like a math teacher not understanding human behavior, just like a psychiatrist. They are the blind trying to describe scenery versus the martial artist who has more of the hawk eye. Think about evolutionary psychology, hypergamy, and how a revolution relates to evolution and evolutionary psychology, which promotes hypergamy and dating up toward the corporate structure. Okay, even the Black Panthers encouraged the use of pussy power, and there were kind of secret groups working both sides to extract the attractive women from the black community, to get them to sleep with the enemy, to advance the cause, which did nothing more than bring in more of the New World Order philosophies. Think about the surveillance state and how it's used to complement this despicable process. Think about immigration and how the coyotes sleep with the women as they come over the border, how people associate with law enforcement and different groups who catch wind of what's going on, force women to have sex with them to maintain themselves in this nation. Okay, think about how chivalry was lost Chivalry came as a result of the spread and the expansion of the Roman Empire from the southern Mediterranean basin, southern Europe, which had contact with the Light Temple, the martial arts orders of Africa. And so as they spread this kind of ability to civilize, which they got from Africa and Babylon, is a kind of lukewarm checkered floor foundation, then it reaches the northern Europeans who talk about chivalry perhaps more than everyone else, right? The Knights of the Round Table and so on. Okay, and of course chivalry dies because the Light Temple philosophy dies in favor of this kind of paganism and the lukewarm people's inability to counter and balance the paganism, much less overcome it. Okay, so you have the 3 steps, right? You have the African Light Temple, and then you have the chivalry, and what's left is the modern morality. The destruction of the African Light Temple, all that's left, the destruction of chivalry, and now the moral relativist push to destroy what's left of morality. You see how that works? I'm not going to have time to go into Revelation 3:7, the key of David, or Revelation 3:15, which talks about how Jesus spits out the church for being lukewarm. Okay? And so morality dies with the types of martial artists who direct, convey, conduct, and channel morality through the spiritual realm into society. That's where it comes from, and you're an idiot if you don't see it that way. I really don't have the time to explore that. Think about the San people, the Mongolians, the Manchurian Candidates. They're kind of the desert area at this point, the desert region of that part, which then the Mongolians took over China and created, I believe, the Manchus or whoever it was. The Sahara Desert, the Nobi Desert, the Arabian Desert, the Libyan Desert, Set and Apep, the desert people, the chaotic people, Lower Egypt where the desert people touch down, Upper Egypt where the jungle people touch down. Okay, Con Hor, right? The lush land of Europe, they took on the con artist perspective, illusionism, illuminism, ominism. Okay, Amun Ra, the Rosetta Stone, the rosette, the pattern on the leopard. Okay, the eagle of Rome, the falcon of Germany, the fall for the con. The birds of prey versus the hawk, the naturally trained versus artificially and scientifically trained and domesticated, dumbed down. And I went over that in the last video, the definitions. The highest forms of acceptance is participation. Participation with what? The Logos and the Spirit of God, or the trade route corporate philosophies that are pushed through the right and the left? The homosexual corporate greed and its resulting culture, multiculturalism, degrees of participation. Think about that. Okay, steroids. All right, so basically, I have time to go over how Ham, Shem, and Japheth in one, and Christ is the spirit of Japheth. Shem, if for nothing else. Okay, of course they're drugging me and doing little bitch shit to throw me off. To make a long story short, look up Seshot and the Tree of Life, Hathor, the sycamore tree, the bread and water of life. There's a lot of things that are firmly rooted in Egypt, and it's the Light Temple. It's not any old Egyptian feminist culture or homosexual culture. It is the heterosexual, masculine Light Temple culture and the resulting fertility cycles, not people fixated on fertility or evil or whatever they indulge in. Sadism, sexual sadism, and so on. So think about the church and the state separated versus the state forcing itself into the church. We separate the church from the state, but the state forces itself upon the church as a result of the corporate sponsorships of the state-run political parties. Think about the Jews as potentially Greco-Turks. They are the fake Jews, the synagogue of Satan. That's in Revelations, Pergamum. Okay, think about Eurasians as having a cultural and racial component as to why they will reject my perspective, my truths, because they have false pride in their races and the continuity of the historical perspectives of who they are, which has to do with defining themselves in their regions instead of as evolved Africans who went away from the Light Temple to cover up the light because they did not want to be part of this martial arts order, which may or may not have went astray at some point, but that's irrelevant. The truths are what is really relevant. So all martial artists had their chance to compete and to vie for the position of the top martial artist. They chose treachery because of lack of awareness, sensing, honing the senses, sparring. Okay, regardless of height, there's people who are taller than I am, but their inability to hone their senses and to coordinate the spirit caused their failure to beat me. So they turned to drugs and cheating and complicity with the state as a result of a lack of awareness and senses and sensibility and honor. Their lukewarm philosophies have failed them one way or another. I am the top martial artist.